So yeah, the talk is called Adaptable Advocates. What I did change was the subtitle because I thought about it while I was doing the slide deck that of course UX writing is needed everywhere, but where are the UX writers needed, so to speak. So because I'm a person and not a machine, yet in future might AI take over my job or something. Welcome to this talk about UX writing. It's lovely that you are interested in this. It's actually astounding that Dirk has 3 UX writers in his team because most of the time it's less. And we will talk about that in this chat that I'm about to give you. I will not look into the chat in Zoom because I'm easily distracted like Dirk is, and I will take a question and answering in the end. So thank you for understanding this. Of course, I want to thank Love and Yuki for having me. She already introduced how we met. It was very nice breakout session with her at the UX Writing of Deutsch Meetup. And this is me. As you can see, this is already a Corona selfie because all the studios closed back then. I am the first and only senior UX writer right now at Sapera. Sapera is doing consulting. It's an consulting firm in Berlin. I'm not in Berlin. I'm working full remote, which is awesome because many big firms refrain from hiring people remote still. And I think this is hindering a lot of knowledge transfer, a lot of openness, a lot of unifying people all around the globe, or at least in the same time zone. You can read what I have done and what I still do because I'm not going to bore you with that. And I have a timer running, as I told Yuki, that I will have a countdown to keep within the time. And the most important thing about me is that I am an activist. And in the German UPA, I am in the Arbeitskreis Ethics, because one of my passions is ethical design, accessibility, like Dirk's Steckenpferd, so the passion that we have and share. And I'm also a member of the Interaction Design Foundation because I always think it's nice to support organizations like that because it all helps us UXer people to get closer together. So hi, that's me. And now we'll talk about UX writing. And user experience writing has been around in the Anglophone world for a decade and not so much in Germany. So it's always different from country to country and how mature a company is and where they are located. But I will keep and stick to UX writing in general for everyone who has not heard of it or is interested in how to proceed with their career into this field. So this question mark, but actually, of course, the answer, the plot twist is already that writing is designing. And this is something that we have to break to many people, not only on teams and when I was working freelance as a consultant, but also if you are dealing with your own things that you still have to remind yourself. Especially I come from a background of traditional writing, print, PR, press, and then I conquered the digital world. In 1999, I did my first webpage with Adobe Dreamweaver. So Dirk has shown his age, so now I'm showing mine. And yeah, it is designing, and we still have to remind ourselves sometimes, and we still have to fight for our place. Someone is not muted. This no problem. This is a graph from UX Writers Collective. As Dirk has mentioned, we also, the UX writers, are closely bound to UX research because, let's face it, user researchers are the best. We need them. We need them to define our personas. We need them for all the things that we could have missed. For example, with the service, if people say, well, let's do a Miro intro, I don't know the tool or something like that. And you go, I was thinking about myself that knows the tool, but I'm not the user. So again, this is the same here. So UX research, yay. Content strategy is something that is, of course, closely related to us designing products, websites, and apps. And design, of course, is the largest overlap because we are both designers, but one is more visual and one is with words. But in the end, words are part of the UI, as you will see. And now the Easter eggs are coming, like the Google Easter egg. This is Tori Popmajewski. She's actually a colleague of Dirk's, and she is located in the US, where she's the only UX writer for many more people than Dirk has mentioned. But this is everything that I'm allowed to share about this. And like she says in this quote, UX writing is everywhere in every experience. So it is really something that first developers, engineers, designers, and whoever is on the team that is like around when they say it's you, and someone has to write the words, even if it's only placeholders and lorem ipsum. Sometimes you have to say this goes there and that goes there, and here's the button, and it would say something like XXX or something, because you still don't know what you are writing yet. And this is another great role model and example from our community is Kinneret Yifra, and she wrote Microcopy, the complete guide. It's available in a German translation. And like she's saying here, if users abandon your forms and not clicking through, they're not engaging. For example, just before the option other was missing. Yeah, maybe if it wouldn't be in a dialogue like this evening, then the user is gone. And the placeholders, as I just mentioned, are as important as everything else. So the trend has been strong, and this is why the decade of what the US and the Anglophone world has in front of us is fast catching up here. So companies will realize we need someone better than just a copywriter, and the difference is something I will explain later, just like Dirk teased you. This is Michael Metz, and he is the co-author of Designing with Words. And well, imagine an app without the words. You cannot have an onboarding. Of course, we have to make it accessible, simple language, and maybe as little words as there are needed. But sometimes you still need something like next, or maybe it's not next, maybe it's join, maybe it's hop on board. It always depends what your product is, what your app is, and what you are selling to people. And this is Andy Welfle, and he is the buddy of Michael Metz. They offer courses from this realm of education. If you're interested, they do workshops and everything. I have attended many seminars and webinars by them, and I was at conference when they spoke. They're really friendly and very entertaining, so I just can recommend them. But for them, the time zones are as equally hard as they are for Dirk and his team, because they have to get up very early to talk to us late at night. And there goes Google again. So if you type in UX writer, then those are the top 4 questions that appear. Really, not joking. It was my search from 2 nights ago. And the interesting thing about this is, of course, yeah, what are they doing? How do you get there? Which is always something I get asked a lot too. And then this talk, of course, focuses on what does a UX writer actually do. So remember the OG of human-centered design, which is, of course, the author of The Design of Everyday Things, Don Norman. He's still alive and kicking. I have seen him giving great talks for Adobe, for example, very inspiring person. And if we communicate, we usually communicate with words that are written on a screen. Voice is a big trend. I will mention that later too, but in the end, someone needs to also write the things for voice. So how are digital products communicating? Yeah, the same thing that we all think if we would imagine something that has only the words that were the placeholders. You would not make anything of the prototype that Dirk has mentioned if you don't put any words in there, because your users or your people you are interviewing have no clue what they are about to do. Yeah, they see just buttons and wireframes. They don't know how they will act and interact with those products. So it's mostly the time when the design fails the usability test that the people realize they need to hire a writer. And I actually, on purpose, put a writer because it can be, of course, any kind of writer, but in the best case, it's a UX writer. And why that is, because we see the human as the center and the focus of everything. And the human experience it's what we do. It's what we are made of. Every single bit that we are creating and crafting is about these people. It's not that I want to write a book because I'm awesome and I want to see my name in the Spiegel bestseller list or something like that. It's because I want to serve, guide, and help people along with their flow. And in the best case, UX writing is not even there. You don't even know that you've been guided or that someone has helped you with a tooltip or anything, because you just anticipate that good UX writing is embedded and ingrained in everything in your interaction. Goes Google again. So the funny thing is, I don't usually put in questions like this, but I find it so funny. This is a great Google product, those cards, and they expand, and you can see what a website that has been granted great SEO by Google is pushed to the top. And then if you have a certain question, it gets put there. So here you can see some examples of what we do, calls to actions and the help content, the onboarding flows. Onboarding can be beneficial. So it teaches you something about the app you're going to get into. And it's very important, of course, because if the onboarding sucks, no one will use your product. They will delete the app again, and that's it. And the other one is a functional onboarding where you just explain what happens in the app. It's not about sales or anything. It's about how does this work, and please stay here and interact with the app. For example, in health and wellness and so on. It's most of the time it's something like that. So you understand everything. So for example, your Krankenkasse can help you. Yeah, something like that. Menu taxonomy and even more. So this web page said in 2019 even that you should make your product sing. And this was interesting to me because I was thinking about this, what's make it sing? And then I thought about, yeah, well, it's the user engagement, the retention, and the clarification, and that you don't leave the user uncertain of what they just did or where they are going to go. So erasing uncertainties is meaning that you have a transparent flow and that you keep the interface self-explanatory, but in the case it's not, you will explain and help. And for example, the cards you just saw with Google, you can expand them, but in the beginning they're not expanded, so you don't get overwhelmed with all the answers, because I think the short sentence is much easier digestible for people than just half of a web page or just the research results even. And this is also about accessibility, of course, but I love this illustration. It's been around for quite some time. It's the 5 C's of UX writing by Charlene Noval, and she writes, UX writing is a piece of cake. It is in this picture, but otherwise it's not. You have to be clear, you have to be concise, please be constructive, at best be conversational, and keep it consistent. It's just something that sounds self-explanatory, but most of the time it's not. For example, consistency could mean that you are in Germany using right gender forms. And if you do that at one point of your website or your product, please think of all the instances where you do this. And if you do this, please think about the future and the future self of you or someone else who has to change all the instances because you decided you're doing something else and something new now, just like the Duden, for example, changed their gender thing just yet. And it was a big discussion in German media. And so every language, of course, has their own challenges and, of course, even advantages. Yeah, sometimes it's great that you have everything in Hebrew. I unfortunately cannot read or speak it, but of course the flow is different because the the yeah, the letters come from the other side. So it's something like the Asian languages. You have to read it differently. But in my case, it's from left to right, of course. So how do we do this with the piece of cake? I picked some funny little examples because I think we have all been there. You have your banking app and you open it and you want to do a transaction and it shows something like the before. It is too long. Have you been checking out already after the third word you don't understand, or even the will be and everything? It's very, very confusing and long. And UX writing makes what is shown here after we'll mail you a check for the remaining balance. See, that was easy. And sometimes in UX writing, it's great if you decide that it can be done in such a short amount, which is not the case for German, disclaimer. But it is for English because it's a shorter language and with shorter words. So you can display it in 2 lines. So maybe in your taxonomy or in library, which I'm doing all the time, you will decide, okay, let's make it a rule. This message will always be just 2 lines in the user interface. We have a maximum character count of 70 characters each, or in an app rather short. And this is it. Yeah, it's the rule. So it helps even someone that is not a writer to at least have a guideline. And this is a guideline not of tone of voice or grammar or what we are using as special wordings or taxonomy. It's just a guideline for the space within the user interface. So this is one of the most fundamental things we can do to help our colleagues to be their best, even if we are occupied with something else and they have to jump in, and we can later on maybe do some corrections or something, but not too much, of course. So you could say in this case, this example shows that you leave out all the extras, you use simple words, and the message goes to the front. So front loading is something that Google UX writers have been talking about in a YouTube very famous speech. If you Google or if you Google on YouTube, the UX writer Google conference, and then they will speak about UX writing. And these are 3 women talking about this, and they say front loading is the term for putting everything to the front. So the most important thing for the person is we'll mail you. So this is good. I'm safe. Yeah, I know this keeps me safe. I don't have to even read a last. Everything went perfectly and is done. I could do the remaining balance, but passive, to write in passive voice, is in English not too great. In German, it's more polite to use passive voice, so you always have to decide what you want to use. But in this case, it's more to the point and straight if you use the active voice. And this is what they are doing. They are keeping it nice because they put the we. They could put the name of the Bank of America, for example, in an acronym or something, BOA or whatever, but they don't. So they communicate with you and keep you safe. And keeping safe is about not crying, right? When you navigate through everything in websites and apps, sometimes you get to this screen. It's the 404 error, and we all know it. And sometimes this just makes us laugh. And of course, Pixar has it easy. They have amazing illustrations, they have amazing content. So this is something they do with the emotion from the movie. I think it's been quite some time, but I think you all know the character. And this is about being a consistent fitting tone of voice. Yeah, you have a whole team that decides how you want to speak to the people using your interface or your apps or your products at all times. That means you speak differently in this 404 error than you would speak in an ad for Facebook or something. It's not the task of a UX writer to do that, but it is similar in what they do, and they match. And so you have to watch the tone of voice for every kind of occurrence you have and every kind of instance. And there's transparency, of course, because they say, oh, you didn't find it. And if you don't get that you didn't find it, they also explain it. Yeah. And they do the reference to the movie. So you should know the movie because otherwise it's a little bit out of place. But this is what we call conversational design or conversation design, which is also something that has been rising up because we want to make interfaces sound human or human-like, but not to be human, because that is cringy and a little bit weird if the interface would act like it's really a human, of chatbots imagine and everything. It's always a little bit embarrassing for the product if they are trying too hard. And we still know that there are machines and not people behind that. And of course, you should speak the language of your personas or your target groups, your users, patients, readers, whatever the target group is. Please find out with your user researcher or through your user research data, what words do they use? Do they talk with or without punctuation? Are they young so they don't use punctuation anymore? For example, I heard millennials are afraid of using the exclamation or seeing the exclamation mark or punctuation in apps because they have gotten used to writing to their friends and peers and everything without any punctuation early on, much earlier than old people like me and Dirk. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. And another app popular with millennials would be Spotify, of course, you know it. I can drop the name of a great podcast of a content designer or UX writer. She's now a senior UX writer like me too, Nicole. She does the podcast Content Rookie, and she is working at Spotify in Stockholm, Sweden. And she's talking about her work like this too. And you can easily see what has been done here. So you have the difference between search and find, because finding is like, yeah, I found something. And searching is like, oh no, I have to search something. And this is all about getting the emotions and the mood right. And in your user testing, you will see people are maybe not even mad about the search, but they're not happy either. So it is about what you want to achieve with the product. And do you want to achieve that people are looking for things more on your app, or do you want to make it harder for them? And a great example, which is not in here because many of you know it, is Netflix. They do an amazing job with their algorithms, with the immersive kind of showing what you can expect from a program, or if you want to skip it. And it's a really nice and intuitive interface. And this is something that refers back to the bank statement. The user doesn't care what kind of error this is. So in the olden days, like Dirk and I have been seeing dialogues a lot, I guess the interface would speak a lot like this. In Windows, for example, a long time, all the errors occurred like this. And people who are or were not familiar with digital products, they were just getting afraid of what the machine is telling them. And this has not changed because it's still a human bias and also ingrained in our brains that we have to be safe and kept safe. And if not, we might not be using that in the future. So trends. They're here to stay and ready to rumble, as I put. There is legal UX writing, for example. You know, all the terms and services, data security. In Europe, the DSGVO is very popular topic. Of course, UX writing will also be AI infused, just like Dirk showed. Voice UI is a big topic. I put it in the chat. In 3 years, or was it 2023? Half of the searches will be done with the audio, with the voice interface. Yeah, Google, Siri, tell me, blah, blah, blah. And the conversation design, as I said, will make a big jump as well, because we see an increase in the use of chatbots, because chatbots are great. They help your team reduce support questions. This is what we UX writers do, or content strategists, content designers as a whole. If they have a little bit of more meta level, we think about how we can design products to reduce support questions, because this is something you want to avoid. So great FAQs and a great chatbot could solve that. And it tells you something about your user every time something is happening with it. Content modeling is something that is very important. Dirk touched on that. It's about CMS and how and where my content gets put and how it turns out. This is a a really hard thing that Figma plugins are trying to solve. Where is the copy and where are we working on it? And do I have to change every 200 gender instances or by hand? Or can I change it once and it just goes magically like this? And management tools and plugins, there are 3 for Figma that are really awesome, depending on your needs in your organization. It's Figma, in Figma, it's Frontitude, Ditto, and I will put it in the chat later too, and strings. So like the strings the devs write. And this is for Figma a plugin set that you can use depending on your needs in your organization. Something that is a huge trend and a big topic. Again, I used Google, it's transcreation and localization. It is putting a text or a copy that has been in your original app or website and you put it into another language. Of course, if you would just have it translated without any context, what is left? It's not saying the right things. It's not the right words. It's maybe something totally different because it doesn't mean the same thing. For example, it could be just a headline that is translated out of context, and suddenly with the design or the graphics or anything besides it, it doesn't make any sense. So most of the time, bigger companies have a localization team in the companies they have around the world or in other countries. So they work closely together with the original UX writers, and they are transcreating and localizing the copy because, of course, as globalization goes further, we need workarounds and workflows for that. And you cannot always have someone who speaks more than one language fluently to really hit the spot with cultural things. For example, again, health and fintech and banking and everything is such a difficult and really sensitive topic. If you miss the tone and if this is not the right word, you are getting really bad reviews or maybe even like big bounce rates and everything. So I loved that Dirk is also, and there's the timer. There we go. Thank you very much, timer. The thing is that the design in general, and then also the UX writing, because it's part of the design, has to be ethical, inclusive, accessible, and diverse. I'm not taking no for an answer because it's 2021 and we are done with everything that is excluding people that are marginalized groups, that are maybe having differences between having to read something or how their ability is to for example, see with red, green, color blindness and everything, but it also goes towards gender, identity, sexuality, everything that is important to people should be included in our design because we shape what the world is looking like. It's our job to make this right and to make this for everyone. So in my mind, every day and every second, I think about, or I try to think about and hope to think about everyone that could be using the product, the page, the checkout process, and how they would find it if they are on the autism spectrum, if they have ADHD, if they are neurodiverse in any kind of way, if they're dyslexic, yeah, can they access my app if I use complex and words that everybody doesn't understand. 2 great book tips. It's Cat Holmes Mismatch. It's an audio book, so you can listen to it if you're not a fan of reading. And if reading is hard for you, then it's also very nice to have an audiobook. And Senongo Akpem, he wrote Cross-Cultural Design. It's a book apart, very nice little shop. And I will just quickly go over the rest of the slides because you heard the timer. That words are just essential to help the users. And if you do this right and from the start, then you will see all the problems you would encounter later on as well. And then you have to have someone like a fire truck running from fire to fire and putting it out because users are saying, I don't get this. What is this? The headline doesn't make sense, etc., etc. And users are really much more competent in these things nowadays. You see it in usability testing, and depending on your personas, people know this stuff. Yeah, they know that the app should treat them right or the product, and yeah, it's something that is really different than from just 5 years ago. And yes, design can be content first. This is Jocelyn Cooper. She was a UX writer at Google, another Easter egg. And it is about the inclusive and mindfulness that you don't exclude people. And if you design this and your copy looks like this, you have made a big mistake just thinking about the design without the words in the beginning. If you have to say everything on the right, it's a problem. And this is something you can think about in content design and strategy. And another great quote, that it's beautiful and easy access to content. No worries, by the way, I will share the slide deck. Just at the end, I took all stock photos from nappy.com, which is a nice free stock photo site for inclusive and other kind of stock photos that we are used to. Check it out. And yes, the end of my talk, of course, gives you the answer that writing is designing. There are books, there are podcasts, there are meetups. You can go to UX Writer Collective and check in a course. They are around $500, so not that inexpensive, but not too shabby for what you are getting. And they always work on new stuff. For example, just released a chatbot course where you can learn chatbot design and everything. And if you have questions, of course, please hit me up. I'm always happy to give another podcast tip. And this is now has been my talk for the uXchange. And just like Yuki has mentioned, she has met me and my partners in crime, Barbara and Katharina, with the German UX writing. We do that meetup monthly, and it has been a great success. So for all of those of you who speak German or understand German, you have cordially invited. And we are happy to have you. And if you want to listen to my voice in German too, just on Monday, I was so honored that another episode of UX Heroes featured me talking about UX writing. And I'm talking to an Austrian peer, Markus Picker. So you have two dialects of German speaking with each other. So check it out if you like that. And yeah, thank you, everyone. And this is for the questions. You all remember maybe, not every one of you, but this is how it was. Proceeding with the operation delete will erase the contents of your hard drive. What do you wish to do? Proceed or delete? So this is a running gag in the UX writing community. And yeah, just about how interfaces talk to you. And now I'm a little bit over the time, but yeah.
No problem. We are not too keen on the time here.
Yeah, I hope we didn't lose everyone. And I see that most of them are still here. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
maybe
you very
they
much.
just left their computer on and left.
Yeah.
Or they're still here because it was so interesting. That's the
sleeping.
question.
But the chat is going wild, so they're not sleeping. Everyone is sleeping.
No, thanks a lot. Like, especially for me, I have like very little touch points with writers and content. And so for this was like really insightful for me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefan. I'm happy.
So open for questions.
Question time.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the chat. How are we going to do it? Shall I read it and get back to you, so to speak? Then I can do that. I'm at the Steckenpferd. This is the beginning.
I think yeah, some questions was already like answered from other people. Also, thank you for that.
Awesome, thank you.
That we have like interaction happening here. That's super cool, because like we don't want to be like front lecturing people, but like being interactive like that. I think so. Everybody also participating in the chat. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
and you said that you will share your slide as well afterwards. That's very great.
Yeah, you can look up all the quotes that much smarter people said than me, because they just said it to the point, and sometimes you just have to give credit where credit is due, and we are all a community, so sharing knowledge is key, so we all can proceed with everything in our lives and to excel and be better. And like teaching and mentoring is something that I have done all of my career too, just like Dirk. So you invited very alike people.
I can see some questions now.
Yes, please.
From Gerald. Do you cooperate with the marketing department in your daily work?
Yes, right now I am. And since I have a background in marketing, which I didn't disclose, it's something that comes quite naturally, that people approach me and then see me as a hybrid unicorn of having the ability to think in the salesy, sexy copy and also in the smart helping copy. So we have contact, but it's not the case everywhere. And I can tell you, Gerald, or whoever asks a question, that in the US, for example, UX and UX writing, therefore, is closely connected to product design. And that's it. That's an agile team. They never speak or touch the marketing department. It's closely related to dev and tech and everything. So it's not part of content and marketing. This is completely different here because we still have to catch up the last 10 years. So most of the time you will have to also fight and discuss with the marketing department because they want to put their words into yours, and you have to argue and prove why users will not like this. And in the end, you just have an A/B test and then you see who was right. And most of the time, it's not the marketing department.
Okay, thank you.
Someone raised their hand. I think Bianca, so is that true?
Hi, yeah, I did, but just mistakenly, I wanted to go to the chats and they are
no problem.
each other, and
now you're
so
on the
fast.
stage.
Thanks a lot for the presentation.
You're very welcome.
So coming to the stage is so much easier than in Clubhouse. You can just come.
Yeah, it's inclusive and accessible, not like Clubhouse.
Equal, yeah.
The UX writing meetup, Verena, and everyone who asked, is on the board. You just follow the people to my face with the headphones on the Miro board, where I introduce myself. I have linked it. It's a LinkedIn page, and that this will take you to the events as well. We will do LinkedIn events too, because we used Thing, and the reach is not quite as large. The next UX writing meetup has no date yet because the last one was just 2 days ago. So we are finding this still out, or finding out when I realized I was a UX writer. When I was working in marketing and people told me I was wrong when I wanted to do something for human-centered design or human-centered content instead of just pushing the marketing message on everyone, because this is so 2000. It's not how we work anymore. And yeah, 10 years ago, I was working as a head of press, and then I had to fight with the marketing department because they also wanted to inject it into the press and everything. And that was always, it's like, yeah, it's not happening like that. And then I realized I want to really serve the users, and slowly switched especially my freelance career to doing this, to getting courses, to talking with peers, having mentorships and everything. That's why I love this community so much, because this community helps out each other. I have found nothing but support and great people that share your ideas. I share mine, and this is why I chose to share my slides and wanted to be recorded for my first talk ever, because I do this in the meetup, but it's very different. I'm the entertainer there and not the monologuist.
Is that true? That was your first talk ever?
Yeah.
Okay, then completely props to you, because when I remember my first talk, it was like 120% worse. So
the thing is, it's the first remote, it's the first UX, it's the first anything. Just since I have been a head of press, of course, you have to talk to the press on a conference and everything. And in my pro bono work, I was saving cats from the street, and I was talking to people about cats all the time when we were fundraising. So this is a different kind of thing. So it was not in English and anything. So Christina,
it was well structured and so on. So be proud of yourself.
Yeah, thank you. That's great if the imposter syndrome never has a chance to even say hi in one day. So does it make sense to use easy language as standard in the future? Yes. But it also depends what your product or your website or your service has to communicate. If it is academic people in the target group, you cannot use the most simplest language because otherwise they will not take you for their kind and their peer group. So simple is always adaptable, just like I am, to different kinds of scenarios, because you have to watch out that you are in no case of the spectrum cringy with the copy you write. And the most complicated project that I had to make easier with words. I think the most complicated project in my non-UX life was when I was a German teacher in Berlin for German as a foreign language. And I had to design a class for people that knew zero German. It was a class from the Canary Islands. It was much fun. There were great people, but how do you communicate if you don't have words to communicate with and just an alphabet? And the most complicated project in my UX life, everything that has to do with marketing. There's a running gag. And do you have UX copy KPIs? Yes, because you can measure conversions. And this is what I didn't include in the talk because it's a whole other can of worms that you're opening. Conversion optimization is something that is a special kind of field that deals with that all the time. Performance marketing is the meta structure around it. And if you are measuring conversions, and if conversions are everything you eat, breathe, and feel, you will forget that they are humans you are talking to. So conversions are okay, but only with a grain of salt and in some extent, because to some extent, because it's more important to do user interviews or do even real life experience while you just observe and the people use your product and you see, okay, there's the heat map or something like that, Hotjar or any tools that can show you, oh, they were really long on this headline. Was that because the headline was super cool, or was that because the headline didn't make any sense and they tried to make sense of it and they just remained very long with their mouse there or something like that? So thanks, Christina, for the triptychon of questions. Guidelines, learnings of UX writing from the English-speaking world to the German language. It's hard AF. It just cannot be described otherwise, because when I was studying German and English literature, so Shakespeare, Goethe, all the people that were once important, all were old white men, if you can imagine that. And this was also a topic there, that you have to transcribe and transcreate a whole culture and something that has been very different back then, because there was no globalization, into another language. And every time Shakespeare was newly translated, it changed completely. It was like, oh, the sonnets sound different now. Yeah, because the touch of time is different. But the funny thing is, yeah, well, Shakespeare is dead and the words remain the same for all the time. So this is a difference to UX copy, of course. The problem with the English speaking world is English has 3 times more words than the German language, because German language is very on point. We have a word for everything. It is exactly meaning something. And this is so hard to translate, even with the length of the words in the UI and UX copy, it's hard, but also culturally to think of the same ways, that what means arrogant. Yeah, do we also mean arrogant, or do we mean eitel, vain, or what exactly is describing someone or something? And this is really down to the nitty gritty. And you kind of need someone, not that I'm a special unicorn, I am, but for other reasons in private life and everything. But the thing is, you need someone who speaks both languages fluently, and at best even more, because it's great to be informed by many more cultures and see the world through eyes of someone else. Yes, that's the question. Learning German is always great, people. Yeah, the recording and Okay.
I think we're nearly through.
Yeah.
Like most of the questions, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too. I just, yeah, I cannot be happier to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
The imposter is not important anymore, Natasha. You just have to live without this imposter syndrome. It's not worth your time.
Okay, I will stop the recording now.
Thank you.
Thanks.